All right, so we're gonna roll with spiritual. Want me to go first?
You go. You take spirit.
All right. So I'm still going through the prophets, and I got 3 chapters left in Jeremiah.
What you think about Jeremiah?
It's sad, and I say it's sad. It's a lot going on, and he's like Oprah, like you getting judgment. You getting judgment. You getting judgment.
Handing them out the way he was
dishing them out, man. Goodness. Like a Las Vegas deal. So in the beginning, so Jeremiah was called at a very young age.
Yeah.
You know? And
before you were born, I set you apart.
That's right.
Jeremiah 1:5.
And so from the very beginning, he's been delivering these messages of judgment to Israel. Like, God's going to do this, God's going to do that, God's going to do this. But each time they give him an out. Like, if you turn from your ways, I'll relent my anger, And so he's giving like, hey, man, you're going down this path. This is what's going to happen if you stay down this path. But if you turn this way, God's going, he's going to recall everything that he's delivered in this judgment. He's not going to do it. And think about it. So God used him through how many kings? 4?
He had one of the longest books, if not the longest.
Maybe 2 kings and like 2 like governors or whatever.
We know King Josiah, right?
Yeah, Josiah, and then Zedekiah.
Yeah. And
then after that, I think it was just like Nebuchadnezzar put somebody in place to kind of be a governor or whatever.
Yeah.
I got to go back and look. Just double check that. So I believe it was 2 kings and like 1 governor or whatever. So during all of this, like he's delivering it. I mean, constantly going to the temple, he's talking to the masses. Hey man, God's going to do this thing if we don't get it right. And so even when you fast forward and everything down the checklist that he was saying was going to happen, these people still like it was to Judah. He was speaking to Judah, not Israel. I'm sorry. Israel's already gone. He was speaking to Judah. So after Judah and Jerusalem, the walls were broken down.
He saw it.
Yeah, he saw it.
He tried to warn them. They didn't listen.
For the remnant that was left, they still wouldn't listen to him. they still wouldn't listen to him. So it's like, what else can I do? When, I can give you a list of like 10 things that God would say was going to happen to Judah, and you guys saw it happen. All you guys saw it happen, and you're still not listening.
Yeah.
So that's why I say it's sad, because it's like he's pouring his heart out. Like at one point, a couple times he prayed to God, like, hey, God, please don't do it. And then he got to the point where it's like, man, because I think God, I want to say at one time, God told him not to ask for him to take it back. But it's like, man, what more do you want from me? And to know that God gave you this word, beyond a shadow of a doubt, and we've seen it walked out, we've seen it occur, these people still won't listen to him.
Yeah.
So now I'm at the last 3 chapters. Like he's delivered judgment to Edom and Ammon and a couple other places or whatever nearby, Philistia, and I forgot the last one. So it's really cool. And I got this one thing. So I think it's in chapter 46 or 47. He's delivering a judgment, and God says, "Is there no more wisdom?" I think the town is Timnah. Is there no more wisdom in Timnah? So essentially, God struck that nation by giving them foolish leadership.
Leadership.
Yes. By putting foolish leaders in place, that's how God struck that nation. It's like, that's still happening now, huh? Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah. So that was eye-opening. And I shared that with a couple of guys. And they're like, man, I didn't know that. And I was like, I didn't know it either. Yeah. So yeah.
We got into leadership with Sammy's interview. So if you haven't seen Sammy's interview, go back and check it out. So
yes,
got into leadership a lot. Miles Monroe, you talk about him. I did just buy a new book. It's over on the floor, but it's called In Charge, and it's a leadership book, and it talks about how we can all be leaders. But it talks about character and the moral responsibility of leadership and how that may be missing. Yes. So I kind of like the idea of servant leadership, and I think we need more of that. So
John C. Maxwell does a lot with that. Yeah. I think it's 360-degree leader.
Okay.
He talks about it's not a title. No matter what position you're in, you can be a leader for those. I mean, you can be a leader for the people who are ranked higher than you in your organization.
Oh yeah,
it's by setting a standard.
For sure.
You know, so yeah, I like that as well.
So almost done with Jeremiah. What's next for you?
Limitations. So I'm going through them in chronological order.
Okay, Jeremiah is after Isaiah. Is
yes.
That right? Okay.
Yes. Okay. I'm gonna tell you those two, man. Looking at the list, it's like, you know, you get excited because I studied the the history of the Old Testament. So that's from, you know, Ruth going through the 1st, 2nd Kings, 1st, 2nd Samuel, 1st, 2nd Chronicles, Ezra, Nehemiah.
Yeah.
So it's like 12 books of the Bible or something like that. And so, you know, I was like, man, I'm done with that. What I'm gonna do next? Like, I'm gonna do the prophets. So, you know, you go and you look, okay, this one's so many chapters, that one's so many chapters. I got Isaiah. Like, man, that's a lot of chapters. And then I looked at Jeremiah, which was right behind it, like, that's more chapters. What are we gonna do?
We're gonna lament.
Yeah, that's right. That came at the right time. So
yeah, man.
So yes, I'm gonna finish out the prophets. And
have you gone through the minor prophets?
I'm mixing all of them in.
Okay, you're gonna okay,
yeah,
cool.
Yeah, minor and major prophets.
Okay.
So after that, I don't know. I don't know what we do next.
You do anything in the New Testament? Any reading in the New Testament?
Yes.
Okay.
So
any structured reading?
So on my own, before I started this kind of path to start studying, like studying, like breaking the Bible down and studying it. I was doing. I was kind of bouncing around. Like I'd read this new Testament. Like I'd read this book of the New Testament, then I'd go to Old Testament, just bouncing back and forth. As far as the Bible study at work, we bounce back and forth intentionally.
Okay.
So like we're doing Mark right now.
Okay.
And so after Mark, we'll go back and do an Old Testament.
Okay.
You know, so that kind of keeps me going back and forth if I don't do it on my own. But yeah, as far as since I've been like, hey, I'm studying this thing, I've been Old Testament.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Good. I was doing a lot of Old Testament.
Mm-hmm.
Not nearly as much these days, but I have started. I want to get back into it.
Yeah.
So I got into the spirit a little bit, but I do my daily devotional in the mornings. I still come out here and do Lord's Prayer first thing in the morning. It's not 5. I need to get back into the 5 a.m. club. So I have slipped a little bit on that.
Mm-hmm.
So I do my Lord's Prayer in the morning. I do my devotional as well as the gratitude journal. And then I'm reading the synoptic gospels. And so it's a thick book.
Yes.
But it takes the 4 gospel accounts, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and it lines up the story. And so it's small print, but you can see what Matthew said versus Mark versus Luke. Mm-hmm. It goes through the parables. It goes through all the teachings. So that's kept me busy as well. So just looking at specifically what each of the accounts said, and then John, very different. So I think Matthew, Mark, and Luke are like 90% similar in terms of the stories. Mm-hmm. John, very different. So, you know, I personally like John. That's my favorite. But it's just interesting to see it all lined up. So I think I would count that as spiritual discipline as well. I will also mention one last book. And this is this most recent term in seminary. I learned about this guy named Dallas Willard. A lot of stuff out of he's deceased. But this book is called The Spirit of the Disciplines. And so in the book, he really talks about the different spiritual disciplines. And so I thought it might be worth, again, kind of like with the mind, what is the mind when we talk about the mind? So when we talk about spiritual discipline, I thought it might be good just to read some of them. So he breaks them down into 2 categories. First one is disciplines of abstinence. So he's got solitude, silence, fasting is on there. Sacrifice is on there as well. And then he's got some other ones in there as well. But then disciplines of engagement is a separate category. So it's study, worship, celebration, service, prayer, fellowship, submission. So anyway, if anybody's curious about when you say spirit, what do you really mean? So to me, Jeremy's definition is really about spiritual discipline. So what are those spiritual practices modeled after the life of Jesus? And so on the back of the book, he has how to live as Jesus lived. So this is really talking about Jesus, the person as he walked the earth. What was his life like, and trying to emulate that as well. So, so I'm not as much into the text, but I do want to get back into some kind of structure, I think, for the scripture reading.
Yes.
But I think between the synoptic gospels and the devotional, I think I'm on track. I got to figure out school.
Yeah.
I have to figure that out. Yeah. So still on the journey, but just a little bit of a detour on the school thing.
That's right, man.